So basically, with every mock draft, we're going to start off with Victor Wembanyama at number 1. It's a no-brainer. This pick was made over a year ago. When you have the first pick, when the Spurs are picking here, it makes it easy going with San Antonio at number 1. Cone has the tough decision at 2, though. He's got the Hornets. You could go with 2 options here. I'm interested to see who you have with the second pick right now.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of the rumors about Brandon Miller going too. Me personally, I think it would be catastrophic to pass on Scoot Henderson here. I understand, there's questions about LaMelo and Scoot as a backcourt, but when you have a talent like Scoot, who I think is firmly my number 2 guy in this draft, you have to go with him. I understand the fit might be a little bit funky at first, but I really think it could work better than people are giving it credit for. And God, if you let Scoot fall to 3, the Blazers are going to have such a valuable pick there. I'm just going to say the Hornets go ahead and make the right decision to pick Scoot at 2, but we'll see with Charlotte. You never really know with them. But yeah, I'm going to go with him there at 2.
Okay, yeah, I agree as well. I'm like, it's the NBA. You take your best player available. And I think
Exactly.
I've been comparing it to Sacramento with a few years ago. Like Tyrese Halliburton was kind of a true playmaking 1 out of Iowa State, and they had De'Aaron Fox. But you know what? You make it work. And if you think, okay, you can't win with 2 guards, you can move one of them. And that's what the Kings did. And it was like one of their best moves in the last decade plus for them.
Yeah,
So,
you can work around that, but passing on a guy like Scoot at 2 would just, I'd be so sad if my team did that.
Yeah, dude, me too. 100%. I'm like, just LaMelo's a catch and shoot guy. Like, he could be a good 3-point shooter around Scoot, and you can make it work. So that makes my decision at 3. When you have 1 and 3, it's kind of easy with this, with the tough decision being made at 2. And then kind of the real draft starts at 4. So we're going to go with Brandon Miller at 3 here to Portland. If you, hold on right now, if you were to say who's picking at 3 on draft night, Portland or anybody else, who would you say?
I think it's probably going to be someone else. I'm a believer that Portland should blow this thing up. I've been saying it for a little while. I just don't think the Dame thing is going to work, but they are dead set, it seems, and trying to build around Dame here, so I think they're going to trade this pick. If I had to make a guess, I'm going to go Toronto. If I have to make a wild guess about who picks here. And I think if the Raptors could start their rebuild with having Scotty Barnes and whoever they get here at 3, especially if Scoot falls to this spot, if I'm the Raptors, I have to capitalize on something like that. If I can get pick 3 for either Siakam, Anunoby, some mixture of the 2, if the Blazers are throwing another asset, you have to capitalize on that because that start to your rebuild would be absurd.
Yeah, I agree. If Scoot falls to 3, I'm calling up immediately, trying to move Pascal Siakam to get him there. And I agree, too, also with Portland blowing it up. And, this also changes completely, I think, if Scoot is available at 3. Because there's no point in not trading the pick and not trading Dame and having Sharp and Simons and Scoot and Dame. Or there's probably even no reason to have Sharp, Simons, and Dame with the way they're going. So, you know what? Move Dame, get those picks, get those young assets, add them to their already kind of rising young core, and you go from there. It's not worth it. We're seeing Denver just kind of mow through teams in the Western Conference. Like Portland, even if they add a Pascal Siakam, in my opinion, they're still a tier below Denver. So it would be tough to really go all in on Dame next year.
Yeah, I completely agree. We'll see what they end up doing. But yeah, like you said, if Scoot is there at 3, I don't think Portland's phone is ever going to have blown up to the level that it's going to be blowing up there with teams just trying to move their stars to try and bring in a guy like Scoot if you start a rebuild.
I agree. And yeah, so I kind of mentioned the drift kind of starts here at 4. We know in some way it's going to be Wemby and then Scoot and Miller in some type of format in the top 3. Who do you have Houston taking at 4?
I think they're going to go Amin Thompson. I'm going to go with him here at 4. They have a void at point guard. I'm not a believer in KPJ being the long-term fit there at the 1. I think he's still a really solid player. But theoretically, especially if you bring in a backcourt of Amin Thompson, Jalen Green, maybe the most athletic backcourt we've ever seen. I think if Amin finds his shot, he's going to be an absolutely special player in this league. I think you have to go with him here. Even if the fit is kind of weird at first, I think you bank on him developing and growing. He could be an incredible fit next to Jalen Green there in the backcourt. And if those 2 guys both hit the way that they can, you've maybe got the best backcourt in the league going forward.
I agree 100%, and I really recommend getting in under Ime Udoka and that whole culture change in Houston. Now, I will ask you, if Houston, before the draft starts, there's a great rumor, or it's happening, that James Harden's reuniting in Houston, would you still take a men at 4 and take a point guard, or would you go more of a forward here with this pick?
Yeah, that's where it gets really tough because I do think there are some other guys here that are interesting, like you talk about. I am a huge fan of Jarris Walker. Like, I love his game, and I think adding kind of a physical defensive guy in Houston could be big for that team. It's kind of a presence that they're looking for. I do think. I'm not the biggest fan of the whole James Harden to Houston thing. I think I think it's a mistake. But if they do go that way, I could definitely see them going for him. Maybe they go for a Cam Whitmore, just add another wing player to that roster. But yeah, if Harden comes in, that's when I think 4 gets really interesting because, if Amon is there at 4 or something crazy happens, I've seen rumors that the Blazers might even be interested in Amon at 3, which if Scoot somehow fell to 4, like it would be the biggest disaster in draft history. But so there could be some really interesting guys there available at 4. If Harden does come into town, I think it makes things interesting. But at the same time, I mean, having Harden as a mentor for an Amen Thompson there in the backcourt alongside Jalen Green might not be the worst way to go for Houston.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that boat too with one, they probably shouldn't bring in James Harden. But if they do, they just invested the second overall pick and are building around Jalen Green from a few drafts ago. They're most likely giving Harden 4 years at the minimum, and they're going to be paying him an absurd amount of money. So Amen Thompson is never going to really be that lead point guard for them for the next few seasons. And yeah, like Harden can be a great mentor, but I guess if you're signing James Harden and you're getting like the last good years out of him, you're trying to win now. So yeah, maybe you pivot to like a Cam Whitmore or another forward, or you look to move that 4th overall pick if like OG Anunoby's on the table or somebody like that. Which, will all kind of lead up to the draft. So this leads us to the Pistons at 5. And there's 3 players that I think I would love Detroit to take here. Either go the other Thompson twin, who I kind of love his athleticism. I love his ball handling skills for somebody that could play as a 3 next to Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. Cam Whitmore as well. I'm interested to see how his shot is going to develop, as well as SROS Thompson. And you have Jarris Walker, who I'm a huge fan of also. Out of all 3 of these guys, I do have Thompson ranked the highest, but I do think Walker would fit this team a lot more. Have Jarris Walker go right next to Jalen Duren. He could space the floor a little bit under new head coach Monty Williams, and then a great pick and roll partner with that backcourt of Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. So that's going to be my selection here with the 5th overall pick.
I like that one. I like the idea of bringing kind of that physical 4. That's kind of a spot that they're missing right now. They tried Isaiah Stewart. They've tried Marvin Bagley, who have each had some success. But Walker is definitely a higher upside guy that I think if he develops the way that he can, again, like I said earlier, huge fan of his game. I would love if somehow he's one of the main guys if OKC trades up, which if y'all didn't know out there, I'm a Thunder fan. If we trade up, he's a guy that I'm looking for as a potential target if he falls down the board a bit. But yeah, I would take him as early as this, maybe even the 4 spot. If we talked about James Harden does go to Houston, his physicality there in Detroit, bringing kind of the defensive identity, I think he'd be a great fit next to Duren as well. I love that pick.
Yeah, and I think guys like Stewart, it doesn't look like they're maybe going to extend him. They're probably having a little hindsight regret on giving Marvin Bagley that contract. And you go with best player available, and I think in that case it's going to be Jarris Walker. So who do you got with the first of the 2 lottery picks with the Orlando Magic at 6?
Yeah, having 2 here in this type of draft is huge for Orlando because there's a lot of great players they could get. I'm going to take the other Thompson twin off the board. I like his game. I think he fits well there in Orlando as well. I think he probably is, in my opinion, best player available here. I know you were saying as well you have him ranked a little bit higher, but you like the fit a little bit more with Walker there. I like Thompson's game a lot. I think he brings something valuable to the Magic where, again, similar to his twin, if he hits the upside that he potentially has, you think about that team in Orlando where they've got Ausar Thompson, they've got Markelle Fultz, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter, like the young talent, plus a 11th overall pick also to make later on. They're just stacking up this young core. I love the idea of him playing alongside Markelle Fultz in the backcourt there, even Jalen Suggs. It is kind of a lot of guards, but at the same time, with the spot that the Magic are in, you go best player available, and like you said earlier, you kind of just figure it out from there.
Yeah, I agree. You take that, especially when you're building your kind of young core like the Orlando Magic. You figure it out later, like you said. And SROS Thompson, like I like his jump shot form. I like it; just looks a little bit better in my opinion. And between his year 1 and year 2 in the Overtime Elite League, his shooting did improve, and it did throughout the Overtime Elite playoffs also. So I do have a little bit more of hope in SROS Thompson's shot. But it's kind of crazy with this Overtime Elite thing and like how much discourse there is with the Thompson twins at the moment. Like I think most people have them in the top 10. Most people have them like around that top 5 area, but I feel like they have a lot of variance where it can go very well, but it could go wrong with these guys.
Yeah, it's a big question mark, and it's something I've thought about a lot too because I really don't know how to judge it. I know a lot of people are talking about when the G League Ignite first became an option with like Jalen Green, people are talking about, how do we weigh this against college competition? Like, what does that look like? And I think that's, again, going to be a conversation with some of the G League guys that are in this year's draft. But really, yeah, the overtime elite kind of pathway is going to be, there's going to be a lot of discourse surrounding it with where the Thompson twins go and, how they end up playing in their first, second, even third years in the season and how other prospects are looked at coming out of that.
Yeah, and I like Orlando taking the chance on Asor because, like we mentioned, they have the 11th overall pick, and they have other young guys they're already building around in Paolo and Franz, and they're expecting a jump from Markel Fultz. So I think they could take the chance on Asor. Now, with the 7th overall pick, I'm going to take Cam Whitmore here. The fit is interesting next to Benedict Mather, and I wonder how it's going to end up working out over time. But I think Whitmore is somebody you could play up, and he can eventually develop his three-point shot next to Miles Turner, and I would just be enamored to watch him and Tyrese Halliburton play together. I think Halliburton would work so well with him or Jarris Walker, whoever falls to 7 in this case. And here I'm going to have them take Whitmore, and this kind of ends my first tier of guys in this draft.
Yeah, Whitmore, the athleticism that he brings to the table. You have him and Tyrese Halliburton running out there throwing lobs and stuff like that. It would be so fun to watch. I mean, Indiana was already one of the most fun teams in the entire league to watch this past season with Tyrese running the show. You add a guy like Cam Whitmore to the situation, and, with him, Tyrese, Benedict Mathurin, their rebuild is off to a ridiculous start already.
Definitely. I agree 100%. Now, Wizards here at 8. This is a team that I feel like they can't, they need to take a chance on somebody. They need this player to hit for them at 8.
Yeah. There are a couple different guys that I think are interesting here, but I think I'm going to go Anthony Black for the Wizards here. I think he's a player that I like his upside, but I also think right now he could be pretty good. They kind of need a lead guard next to Bradley Beal. Monte Morris just really isn't the answer there. Black's kind of like that combo type guy. I like the fit theoretically of him being he projects as a high level defensive guard alongside Bradley Beal. The Wizards are also one of those teams in a weird spot where it's they probably shouldn't be trying to compete, but they want to compete. So I thought about a couple of other guys here in this spot as well. But I think Anthony Black has a lot of upside. I know he's been rising up a lot of teams' draft boards, going through the combine and the pre-draft processes. So I think he is probably going to go in this top 10. And I think Washington's a pretty solid spot for him.
I agree, and I think he could be a nice fit next to Bradley Beal, help him out on the defensive side of the ball. I know he's getting a lot of comparisons to the Dyson Daniels and a little bit of the hype he had last year that could project into one of those bigger guards at 6'7". That's kind of crazy coming in as a point guard next to Bradley Beal. And they've been in purgatory. They're probably going to re-sign KP, maybe not Kuzma, but they're going to be around the 9-10 seed, and it's going to be kind of rinse and repeat for the Wizards. So they need to hit on this pick, and I like Black as an option for them. We'll hop here into the Utah Jazz at 9, a team that definitely exceeded expectations this year for sure. Fizzled out a little bit at the end of the year, but at least have some nice building blocks in Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler. Oh, man, I'm just kind of imagining what a Walker Kessler at the 3, Taylor Hendricks at the 4, and Lauri Markkanen 3, Taylor Hendricks 4, Walker Kessler at the 5, kind of trio can look like, and I would be very excited about that. You could also look into the Grady Dick scenario here, but it looks like Jordan Clarkson might try to get an agreement done with them. We'll see about that, and they obviously have Colin Sexton in that backcourt as well. They do have some other first-round picks, and maybe I don't know if they would go for a true point guard. They might feel this is a little bit high for a Nick Smith or a Jalen Hood-Schifino. So I'm kind of between Taylor Hendricks or maybe going the point guard route in Cason Wallace. I might talk myself into getting a defensive-minded point guard here in Cason Wallace, who in my opinion is one of the better defenders in this draft. And you know what? I'm going to talk myself out of Taylor Hendricks, who I think is getting a ton of hype, and he should be, but maybe not as hype as maybe he's going to translate to the next level. So I'm going to go with Cason Wallace here. Kind of went back and forth between him and Hendricks, and that's going to be my selection for the Jazz at 9.
I like that pick. I like the idea of bringing in that defensive guard. They're still trying to find who that lead guard of the future is going to be. I like the idea of Wallace. Just being that high-level defender, you put him out there. I like his playmaking chops a lot, too. Someone that can play well, I think, off of Lauri Markkanen, off of Walker Kessler. I mean, you bring in a guy who projects as an incredible defender at the guard position. You have Walker Kessler, already one of the best young rim protectors in the league. You can start to build out a bit of a defensive identity there in Utah. I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so at 10, this is where so far I've got kind of a mock draft over here on the side, something that I was working on last night, and I had Taylor Hendricks going there at 9 and Casey Wallace going at 10, so I'm just going to go ahead and flip-flop them here. And I think if the Mavericks can get Taylor Hendricks here at 10, they're ecstatic. Like, they are a team that's trying to compete now. He feels like an NBA-ready player. I mean, he just does so many things well. He's like at kind of a position of need for them too, where they could use some of those bigger guys, those consistent front court players. I love the idea of Taylor Hendricks there in Dallas. There have been a lot of conversations about if they'll trade this pick, but I think if they get to this spot and he's available, you should just go ahead and take him if there's no good offers out there, because he is like one of the most perfect fits on this entire draft board for Dallas in particular.
Yeah, I agree. Somebody that can space the floor a little bit, can help them out on the defensive end. We all saw how bad their defense was after the Dorian Finney-Smith kind of departure in the Kyrie Irving deal, and this is huge. This was kind of like an alley-oop I threw this to you, because this is like a perfect fit here. So I was like, you know what, maybe I won't take Taylor Hendricks here, because like him in Dallas is just a perfect fit there at 10. All right, so earlier in the mock, we did have the Orlando Magic select Asura Thompson with that 6th overall pick, and I think the Orlando Magic, they're fine with really taking any type of position here. I would probably stay away from like a true point guard because of Fultz and what Suggs can become and Cole Anthony. So I like them adding more shooting. You know what? You can kind of experiment with some Powell at the 5, Franz at the 4 lineups. Add Grady Dick. Asura Thompson shot might take a little bit of time to develop, but let's say Grady Dick, who can be a shooting guard, be a small forward, be out there on the wing, who also is projecting to be a solid defender in the NBA as well. And I think just adding Grady Dick, adding Asura Thompson in this draft would just be a chef's kiss, in my opinion, for the Magic.
Oh, yeah, that's a fantastic first couple of picks for them. Like you said, just bringing a guy who you know is just... there's one thing Grady Dick is going to do really well, and he's going to shoot the heck out of the ball. Like you said, he could also be a high-level defender as well. If he develops into that 3-and-D guy you get here at 11, that's incredible value there. And like you said, you're kind of banking on a little bit of potential with Asura Thompson earlier. You bring in a more kind of surefire guy in Grady Dick there, and yeah, I think the Magic make out of this draft really, really happy with what they got.
Definitely. And here you are with your Thunder. Now, I've been hearing so many different rumors on where the Thunder could go. Would they trade the pick? Would they look to take a guy that's more NBA ready, or take a project player? What do you think they're going to do?
So, yeah, there's been a lot of rumors. A lot of Thunder fans really want to take like an NBA ready guy because, you know, we've got Poku, who we're working on developing, Ousmane Dieng we took last year, who's a bit more of a project guy. And from all the rumors I've been seeing, it seems like there's one guy who's kind of flown up draft boards that feels like a Thunder guy that apparently has some kind of promise. Yeah, I see you scrolling down a little bit. I think you know who I'm going over to.
Yeah.
My guy Bilal, you know, coming from France, playing on Metz 92 alongside Victor Wembanyama. I mean, I've become more of a fan of his from watching more tape on him. He projects as an incredible defender. If the three-point shot can start falling, I think he fits amazing on this team. You know, he shot a decent percentage, but it wasn't on the best volume. So it remains to be seen how great of a shooter he can be. He is, again, kind of more of a project-type player, but he feels like a Sam Presti type guy that we would go with here at 12. So some people are probably going to go, who the hell is this guy on draft night, and think it's a bit of a reach. I like his game a lot. It is, again, kind of more of a project player when we're trying to, or it feels like we're pushing towards maybe the playoffs next year, depending on how Chet looks and how we replicate our success from this season. But he feels like a guy who could go here, so I'm going to go ahead and just make the pick that seems like it's probably going to end up happening.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like, because you already have basically a top 5 pick, like, rookie this year, like Chet Holmgren. Like, you're going to have to find 25 around there minutes for Chet to insert into this lineup. And you did so well and exceeded expectations last year with Shea and Giddey and Jalen Williams, and you want to keep developing those guys. So you don't probably want to take anybody that's going to take too many minutes away from those guys. So I agree. Take somebody who can maybe benefit from being in the G League and can learn from some of the other project players on the team like Poku and Ousmane Dieng, who you also mentioned. So I like that pick. Yeah, it seems like Cole Belly, who's just like shot up mock drafts over the last couple of weeks, and is looking like he's going to be a lottery pick.
Yeah, and I mean, from all the stuff I've seen, it's either going to be like a few years ago when we drafted Cameron Payne, like back in those days, all the rumors that we were going to draft Cameron Payne and everyone kind of knew who we were going to take there. And then it's like when we took Giddey and everybody was like, oh, they're going to take James Bouknight here. It's one of those two situations. Either we are 100% locked in on him, or there's absolutely no chance we're going to take him, like was the case with Bouknight. I don't know which one it is, but I'm feeling like it's more so a kind of locked in on him type of situation there for us.
Yeah. Totally. And I'm picking here with the Raptors, and I kind of like doing the mock draft with somebody else because then I can't really set myself up to pick somebody here. So I'm expecting like Fred VanVleet to possibly walk, but I wouldn't be surprised if he stays. And I can't really predict what Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster are going to do with this team on draft night, because I'm like, man, are they going to go with like a point guard, maybe somebody that can be there after Fred VanVleet leaves, maybe a Hood Schifino, maybe a Nick Smith, maybe a Kobe Buffkin, who I love in this draft. I'm also like targeting Leonard Miller out of the G League, somebody that has insane size and insane frame, and if they move Anunoby, is just going to project to that like super raw prospect, but somebody that could just be an athletic freak when he develops, and Toronto's not looking to possibly win now. Because, like, I just don't know which way they're going to go in this offseason. Yeah. Are they going to move Anunoby? Are they going to move on from VanVleet and maybe move Siakam? Or they're going to just kind of try to win now next year? Oh, man, I'm torn on who I want to have them take here.
There's so many different ways they could go. They're one of the most interesting teams. Like you're saying, Leonard Miller feels like a guy the Raptors would go with, but I mean, I know you mentioned Kobe Buffkin earlier. I like him a lot here as well for the Raptors. You know, you mentioned Hood Schifino too. Like, there's so many different ways they could go, again, depending on if they decide to blow this thing up or try again next year, which, you know, with this Raptors team, it feels like they never go for a full rebuild, but maybe now's the time.
Yeah. It's between Leonard Miller or Kobe Buffkin for me. I think I'm going to go Kobe Buffkin. He's my 4th-ranked point guard in this draft. I have a top 10 grade on him. I would take him in the top 10. I loved what he did at Michigan this past season. I think he could lead this offense, be somebody that could step right in, be the floor general for Toronto. And yeah, it comes down to either I think they could take a project player like a Leonard Miller or Bilal if he falls to them at 13. But for now, I'm going to go Buffkin, more of an NBA-ready guy.
Yeah, I like that pick. That's also who I had going here at 13. And for the Pelicans at 14, I feel like there's one guy on the board that's kind of sticking out to me a bit, and that's Jordan Hawkins. He's really sticking out to me as someone that feels like the Pelicans are just trying to bring in high-level shooters to put alongside Zion and Brandon Ingram. You add one of the best shooters in this entire draft class in Jordan Hawkins. You have him. You have Trey Murphy out there on the perimeter with like Zion attacking inside and Brandon Ingram doing his thing. Like, this team just somehow gets even more dangerous by adding a guy like Hawkins. I think he'd be ready to produce right away with the Pelicans trying to compete. So I like him a lot here at 14 for New Orleans.
For sure. And I'm glad like he's going to go to a team that has a like high ceiling next year in New Orleans, and they could be as high as maybe this 5th seed or 6th seed if they stay healthy. And that could be in the playoffs. And I think like Hawkins like needs to be drafted to a team where he could be an immediate contender. Yeah. For the Hawks at 15, it's weird because like I kind of am getting on to like Derek Lively in the top 15, but like they have Clint Capella, they drafted Onyeka Okongwu in the top 10 a few years ago. They're still paying John Collins, and like I don't know if anybody's even want to trade for him. And they got a ton of wings with AJ Griffin, Jalen Johnson, Sadiq Bey, DeAndre Hunter, Bogdan Bogdanovic, who they just extended. So I'm kind of looking into the backup point guard spot because we're going to see Trae Young as the one, DeJounte Murray kind of playing next to him. And I like the idea of Jalen Hood Schifino going to the Hawks here at 15. They don't really have a true need when it comes to a positional spot. So in my opinion, maybe get somebody that can develop to be your backup point guard, something you really haven't had since Trae Young has been there.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think he's someone that the Jazz, if they didn't take Cason Wallace earlier in our mock, really would have been looking for there at 16 as a potential guard. Now that they've got someone, they're probably not looking to trade up for him, and I think Atlanta's a good spot to go. You know, he gets to learn behind Trae Young, one of the best guards in the entire league. I think that's a great spot for him there at 15. And 16 now with the Jazz. It's a tough spot because Derek Lively, again, like you were saying, is one of those guys that's been flying up draft boards. So he's really interesting. Nick Smith Jr., I feel like this is a perfect spot for him to go as well. I know you're pretty high on him. I watched your past mock draft where you were talking about how high you are on Nick Smith. And honestly, I kind of like the idea of Nick Smith going to Utah here. I kind of like the idea of him going into that system. You know, you just add another potentially really high-level guy to that team. He was one of the top prospects coming into this year. You know, he dealt with injury. If he fills out his frame a bit more, he's going to be so good, and he showed so many flashes of what made him considered one of the top guys coming into this draft, you know, prior to the year. I think the Jazz go ahead and take a swing here on Nick Smith Jr. They've got some really solid established talent, and if Nick Smith pans out to a level that he could, like the Jazz are, and you consider all the picks they still have in the future as well, right. I think you go with a guy here who, if he ends up reaching his potential, is ridiculous.
Yeah, I kind of love this too, especially if like maybe Jordan Clarkson leaves and there's some minutes freed up there, because I think Nick Smith could be a combo guard. I think he can. He has the ball handle. He could develop the shot, and he's got, I think, good enough like floor vision and a defensive like upside where he could be next to Cason Wallace as the 2 or the 1. And Cason Wallace, like mentioned before, great defender, can also help out Nick Smith in that backcourt. So kind of love this, having Nick Smith and Cason Wallace drafted to the same team. And the Jazz, man, like they have all these assets and young picks or young players in these picks, so like they're really looking good for the future.
Oh yeah, they're as a Thunder fan, one of the teams I'm worried about going forward is
Yeah.
that Jazz squad with what they're building over there.
Yeah, they're kind of like a mini Thunder with all those picks that they've accumulated in the past year.
Exactly.
So we have the Lakers here at 17. Now, the Lakers have so many big decisions to make in this free agency. Are they going to re-sign Rui Hashimura? Are they going to re-sign Austin Reeves? D'Angelo Russell's a free agent. They're going to have to decide an option on Malik Beasley. Are they going to go after Kyrie Irving? Can all kind of be possibilities. Now, there's a chance they look into a guard spot here or maybe another wing, but I kind of like the idea of taking Derek Lively. I feel like the Lakers would benefit from getting somebody that's an upgrade over what Mo Bamba was for them, and they can maybe slide AD to the power forward spot if Lively is ready, and that's something AD's kind of wanted to do for a while now. So yeah, maybe Lively, who in the pre-draft workouts has really showcased his three-point shot, and the form looks good, and if he could develop that three-point shot while he's also, like, the main reason to take Lively in this first round was because he projects to be an elite rim protector and a great shot blocker. So if you add in the three-point shot, I think this would be a fantastic pick for the Lakers at 17.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite picks in this entire mock. Like, I have him over here. I think if he falls to 17, the Lakers should take him. Before they even say that the Lakers are on the clock, they should go ahead and send this one in. Like you said, Lively, the fact that he's been showing a shot, like, he feels like he could be more of what they were hoping Mo Bamba would be when they traded for him. I think he could be that rim protector. He's got a lot of size, like you said. Just adding another big body there in the front court alongside Anthony Davis, I think is huge because you do worry about the durability, him having to play a lot of moments there at the center spot as opposed to the four where he likes to kind of hang out. So I like the idea of Derek Lively a lot here at 17 to the Lakers. I think if he falls this far, LA has to make the call basically immediately to bring him in.
For sure.
And then at 18 with the Heat, there's a couple of different guys here, but I do think this is a spot where I kind of like Leonard Miller. I think for Miami here, he's a bit of a question mark in some regards, but if there's any team that likes to go ahead and take swings on guys that feel, and then they just turn into, incredible players, it is Miami. I mean, 6'10", you give the height, the frame, someone that could go ahead and play multiple positions. If the shot really comes along, he could also be phenomenal on that roster. I think he could benefit a lot too from, that Heat culture, the fact that they're just one of the best developmental situations in the entire NBA. I think Leonard Miller going here to Miami is a fantastic spot for him to go and really might be the best opportunity for a team to capitalize on his potential.
Yeah, and we saw them take Nikola Jovic late in the first round last year, who was like one of the bigger projects in the draft. So the Heat are not scared to take a project player. So I like the prediction here to take Leonard Miller, and I'd love this pick for them. And it's just crazy. They're in the NBA Finals, and they're picking at 18, which is just wild
Exactly.
just to think about, because usually you're picking 29 or 30. So we're on the clock here with the Warriors at 19. And this is a team that could look completely different next year, or maybe it's not going to change a lot. Maybe they don't move Jordan Poole. Maybe Draymond Green opts in, or they get an extension done. And obviously Clay and Wiggins and Curry are all back, and Kevon Looney. So I don't really know what the Warriors are going to do this offseason, so I think I would just go with like one of the better players available and somebody that can help them win next year. I think that could come down to Chris Murray, and I like his three-point shot out of Iowa, obviously brother of Keegan Murray. I don't know if the Warriors are going to take another project player similar to like what Kuminga was a few years ago, because they're trying to win right now. So I think maybe if Draymond leaves, they could look at Noah Clowney, who can come and give them big man minutes. Maybe they look at James Najee. I think Derek Lively, if he fell to 19, would have been a great pick. So I'm going to end up going with Chris Murray. He can play the 3. He could play the 4. He can come in, be a good shooter for them right away. He's 21 years old. He's going to be 22 when the season starts. I feel like the Warriors are probably going to take more of an NBA-ready guy than a project player.
Yeah, I mean, I like that pick a lot, bringing in a guy like him. Like you said, they're trying to win now. I think they are probably learning that the two timelines thing doesn't really work. You can't really have, these young project guys that you're trying to work on while you're also trying to compete for a championship. You've got to capitalize on when you've got Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. I wouldn't be surprised if they move off a couple of those other young guys. So bringing in a more NBA-ready player like Chris Murray, who can make an impact right away, is the perfect way for the Warriors to go. I would be surprised if they go with another project guy like you were saying. But that does lead to the Rockets, who here at 20, the Rockets are an interesting spot because, earlier we had them take Ahmed Thompson, so they've kind of got that guard going forward. There's a lot of different guys that could go here. They could go for a more project guy like Ron Rupert. They could go for a Keontae George, who feels like he could have gone a lot earlier here, so maybe they just go ahead and buy on him here. If they want some buckets, which I feel like they already kind of have a lot of guys who go for buckets, they could go for Bryce Sensabaugh. I like Jet Howard a little bit too. I think I am going to go ahead and go with Keontae George. I'm going to go with him here. I like the idea of them just bringing in and buying in on a guy who, like I said, I feel like could have gone so much earlier. I've become a big fan of his over the course of this pre-draft process. He's younger. He can grow alongside this young core. And I know they're kind of trying to go towards more win now, but you still are one of the, younger teams in the league. You're trying to go through this process of rebuilding. I feel like here at pick 20, you can take a bit of a swing on a guy that, again, I feel like could have gone a lot earlier in this draft.
Yeah, I totally agree. He definitely could go in the lottery. And there's always like that one guy that ends up falling that people are like, whoa, I thought he was going to go in the lottery. And maybe George is that guy or it's somebody else, but it usually always happens. So 20th pick, we got Keontae George out of Baylor going. So the Nets are on the clock here at 21. And the Nets are also in a weird position because this roster isn't great on paper. They have one of the worst contracts in the NBA in Ben Simmons. They have somebody to build around in Mikal Bridges, but they don't own many of their first round picks for the next few years from the James Harden trade back from a couple years ago. So do the Nets maybe want to go for somebody that can help them win now, or do they want to trade some picks? We'll see. I think the Nets should take a chance on some guys, and I like the idea of going with Gregory Jackson at the 21st pick. I'm not as high on GG Jackson as some other people are. I'm worried about the shot selection and how the shot is going to translate to the next level and kind of where his size, because he's in like that tweener spot. Is he going to be a big? Is he going to be a wing? But he definitely has the potential. He was a top high school recruit. He had some good games at South Carolina. It's not like he was a total bust out there. He had some good games, and I think you're taking a risk on him here at 21, but the Nets can take that risk. They're not really trying to win a championship next year. They have multiple other first-round picks, so I'm going with Gregory Jackson at 21.
Yeah, I think this is a good spot for GG. Like you said, when you don't have a lot of picks, you kind of got to take advantage of what you do have, and if you can, find what made him such a highly sought-after recruit in the NBA, if you can kind of rediscover some of that potential and you get a steal here at this pick, I think that's a home run for the Brooklyn Nets, so I like that pick a lot, and they pick back-to-back. They've got back-to-back selections here, and I think for here, you took someone that's kind of more of a little bit of a project. There's a couple of guys I am kind of interested in going here. I think one thing this Nets team really needs is some extra scoring. Of course, they have Mikal Bridges, but I think they could use just someone who can go get you some buckets for this team going forward. So I'm going to go with Bryce Sensabaugh, one of the best pure bucket getters in this entire draft. So go ahead, bring him into Brooklyn. You, again, add someone who just can score the hell out of the ball. He can, you've got to work a little bit maybe on his playmaking and other aspects of his game. But if you just want someone who can strictly go get you some buckets, which is something the Nets could use both now and going forward, I like the idea of going in and buying on Bryce Sensabaugh. And if he does round out his game a little bit more and continues that high level scoring that he showed in college and elevates it in the NBA, then all of a sudden you have someone who could be incredible in a few years.
Yeah, I like Bryce Sensabaugh here. I think this is like pretty low for where he can go in the draft. He could go as high as like in the lottery at maybe 14 or 13 around there. So I think the Nets do well with Gregory Jackson and Bryce Sensabaugh in our mock. We got the Blazers here at 23. This is from the Josh Hart trade that went down at the deadline. Since the Knicks made the playoffs, it's going here to Portland. So I'm going to make this pick in mind that the Blazers are trading Damian Lillard because that's what I think they should do. So I'm okay with them going with some more project players. And I kind of like Dariq Whitehead. Similar to Gregory Jackson, I'm not the biggest Dariq Whitehead fan. I would not take him in the lottery. I would be kind of hesitant to take him in the top maybe 17, but right here with Portland, their second first round pick, he has a great jump shot and it could really develop. He's 6'7". If he builds into his frame, he could be like that perfect wing for you. I'm just worried about the injury concerns. He had some nasty foot injuries that derailed his freshman year at Duke, and you're taking a chance with him at 23. And I think that's what you got to do here.
Yeah, I think bringing in a player like him, again, if they do decide to go ahead and trade Damian Lillard, it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and buy on a guy that has that upside. Again, you do worry a little bit about those injuries, but long-term, like, we talked about a couple players in this draft, if he's able to stay healthy and reach that potential that he showed at times, then you could be getting a steal here at the 23rd overall pick. Now we get to the Kings at 24, who are, similar to a lot of these squads trying to compete now. And I feel like Jet Howard's kind of fallen a lot. And I kind of like the idea of bringing a guy like him, just adding another wing player to this team. Again, it feels like he could go a lot higher than this. So I'm going to go ahead and take Jet Howard for the Kings. He's fallen very far up to this point, kind of similar to what we're talking about with Keontae George. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes a lot higher than this. A little bit of a do-it-all type of wing. I think he is decently NBA ready. You've got to kind of work out a couple aspects of his game, but I like the idea of him playing in that system in Sacramento, and I think he could be a good fit there.
Yeah, I like Howard's upside, and maybe he could be a good defender, and that's something the Kings need to add next year. On the clock here, 25, Memphis. I mean, a team team that has championship hopes. We'll see about John Moran, what's going to go on with him, how many games he might get suspended for. So they might go with... I feel like, okay, we have a lot of top project players on the board. I think James Najee might take a couple of years. Ryan Rupert is going to take a couple of years. So I think they could go for somebody that can help them right now, and I love Maxwell Lewis. I have a lottery grade on him, just like around that spot. I think he's so good at finishing at the rim, and he can get to the rim with ease. He did play at a smaller school like Pepperdine, but I think he has the frame, he has that touch, that inside scoring ability that he could really be a solid scorer at the next level, and I think Memphis can go and take another wing. You can never have enough wings, right?
26, we've got Pacers, and there are a couple different guys, again, like a lot of these teams that they could go with. But I think someone I like here is Noah Clowney. They're kind of looking for that 4. They're looking to add a bit to that front court. They haven't really found who that guy is going to be quite yet. Maybe it is, we took Cam Whitmore earlier on for the Pacers, so maybe he projects as a small ball 4, but a bit more of a bigger presence in Noah Clowney, somebody that, if he develops his game, could be a good 3-and-D guy there in the front court. He is a bit more of a project, but ultimately the Pacers aren't necessarily in a rush. They're trying to build towards competing, but it's so early on in the stages of their rebuild. And if Noah Clowney, you can get the best out of him with a high-level playmaker like a Tyrese Halliburton and get your power forward of the future, especially here at pick 26, that's a home run.
Yeah, 100%. I just kind of would love to watch like a lineup of Halliburton and maybe like Nembhard or Mathern, and then we had the Pacers take Cam Whitmore and then Clowney and Turner in that front court. That would be just so much fun to watch. We're on the clock here, 27. This is Charlotte. This is from Denver's first round pick, and now this is another first round pick for Charlotte, who probably is not going to make the playoffs, or maybe they could make the play-in tournament next year, but I think they should still go with somebody that has high potential, maybe not the highest floor in the world, but Ryan Rupert, I think at 27, if he does fall, he's got a super big variance in this draft. He can go maybe as high as 10, but he can also go as low as where we have him here at 27 because of the just kind of unknown with him coming overseas from France. So I'm going to have the Hornets go with Repair here at 27, add another wing because they don't have enough wings at the moment.
With the Jazz, it's interesting. So earlier on, we got the Jazz, Case and Wallace. We also got them. Who'd we take for them at 16? Who was that guy that we went there? That was...
We went with Nick Smith, I believe.
Nick Smith. Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez, the Jazz having 3 picks here. That's also kind of huge for them. I think I'm going to go with James Najee here for the Jazz. I like the idea of them taking a bit of a swing. They've, of course, got Walker Kessler, but here at, a late stage in the first round, you can take someone that isn't necessarily a need, but again, someone that you could work on developing. If he develops into your solid backup center, that's awesome. If he doesn't end up panning out, then it's the 20th overall pick. It's not the end of the world. I think they can afford to take a swing here. And, between James Najee, Nick Smith, like Keeson Wallace, they had a really good draft.
Yeah, 100%. And the Jazz, like you said, this is their third first round pick. This is where you take the chances, and you just hope that he's better than Udoka Azubuike or Vernon Carey down the line, which is 100% possible. So another team that has 3 first-round picks is the Indiana Pacers. This one is from the Malcolm Brogdon trade, and there's some guys that I still have first-round grades on that we still have available. Trace Jackson-Davis I really like. Marcus Sasser. Sidy Cissoko is here. Oh, man, there's a lot. Because I really love Brandon Podziemski out of Santa Clara. I think he's going to go in the first round. Colby Jones. I just love how crafty of a scorer he is. I'm going to go with Sidy Cissoko here because the Pacers, they're maybe not going to be an elite team next year. Probably not. So, let's take a project player in Sidy Cissoko, somebody that's another wing that could take a little bit of time to develop. But like you did with the Jazz, this is what you do with your third first-round pick.
Yeah, you can take those swings. And we're going to finish things off here with the Clippers in the first round. And like you were saying, like you were saying, he should go in the first round. I don't think Pods could go, beyond this 30th overall pick. I think the Clippers go ahead and snag a guy like him here. He's been picking up some steam to maybe go a bit higher in the draft. The shot making, the playmaking, the limitations are a little bit there physically, but I think ultimately, he's a guy that could help the Clippers out. They're just looking to find someone that could come in and be impactful right away, and I think Pods can do exactly that for the Clippers.
100%. I love that pick. So that's going to wrap out our mock draft. Cone, if you had to look out here, maybe besides the OKC Thunder pick, who was your favorite pick that we made in this draft?
Favorite pick? I really like Taylor Hendricks there for the Mavericks. I appreciate that alley-oop from you. The more that I'm looking at it, I really like Nick Smith as well over to the Utah Jazz. I really like the idea of him going there. I think that's a really good spot for him. Derek Lively to the Lakers as well. That's a good location for him to end up. Yeah, I think there's a lot of great fits in this draft, everything that we went with here. I even think Grady Dick there with the Magic could be a really good fit. And, you kind of talked me into Jalen Hood-Schifino there for the Hawks at 15. The idea of him playing alongside Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, getting to learn from them in the backcourt. I think a lot of teams come out of this winners. I think all these picks make sense. And I think it kind of just speaks to how good this draft class is, where we went through this whole thing and I think every single team got something out of it.
For sure. And I think like it has such good like middle level talent, like around that 20th pick, like just you can't go wrong. And I just like love some of the guys that went later in the draft, like Sidi Sissoko at 29, Podziemski at 30, Ryan Rupert 27, Maxwell Lewis 25. These are guys that maybe in some years go in the top 20, and this draft class is very deep as it is. Well, Cone, I just want to say thank you for hopping on, doing this mock. It was super fun to do, and I love doing it with somebody else where you can't really set yourself up for these next couple of picks, and you got to go off what each other's what we do basically.
Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate you hooking me up to hop on here with you on the channel. It was a really fun time. This is my first mock of this cycle. Been kind of looking into prospects and stuff like that, but this has been my first chance to kind of evaluate it alongside someone else. So yeah, this was a really good time. I appreciate you having me on, and appreciate all y'all out there for watching the mock.
For sure. And yeah, you guys can check out Cone's channel, link in the description as well, where he gives all his opinions on the NBA over there. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Catch you on the next one. Peace.